Thank you so much for joining me here at the First Alert Desk on Atlanta News First Plus. I am Maria Moreau here. As you can see, next to me is a live look inside the Georgia State Capitol, where we are moments away from hearing from local lawmakers as they outline their 2025 legislative priorities and goals for this new year. Now, the legislative session kicks off on Monday, so we are just days away from a new political period here in the Peach State and welcoming new legislative faces to the table. Now let's take you out live to House Speaker Jon Burns as he prepares to deliver some of the remarks and outline priorities for the new year.
And next week when we get back together, we'll be able to exchange. I'll give you a good coin. So we'd appreciate that. I don't? I apologize. You know I'm new at this.
Can't use that excuse.
Yeah.
We gave you a little bit of grace.
No.
Got a biennium under your belt.
Greg on one side and Jeff on the other. I'm in trouble. I can see that already. Well, good afternoon, y'all.
Good afternoon.
Thanks for being here. And, it's a new year. And we're looking forward to the 2025 and all the possibility it brings to us. And, I certainly hope that you all have. I certainly had a very joyous holiday season with my family, my grandchildren, neighbors, and have some downtime with staff here and certainly all of those that make what we do here in the Capitol under this. Hey, the beautiful Golden Dome, what about it? It looks good, doesn't it? It's really shining up there. It's very appropriate that we would have a Gold Dome ready to go after all the work that took in the all season to get ready for this legislative session. And I am excited about this session. Lots of opportunities, but I want to pause there first and just thank you all for the coverage that you've given to really a celebration of life, President Jimmy Carter, and what he's meant to all of us in this room. Kayla, I want to borrow that. So one of my special pieces of memory of two special men to me. One of them was my dad, who was a county commissioner down in Effingham County, where we come from. And in 1977, Governor Jimmy Carter signed his certificate as an elected official in Georgia. And it's also signed by Hamlin Jordan. And that's pretty special. It hangs in my office. And I wanted to bring it here and show it to y'all. So good stuff and good memories of a very, very good man who was special to so many people. And boy, what a life of achievements. We were talking earlier about the documentaries we've seen to remind us all of how special he was and about his career. And boy, he got it done. Never gave up. And, I told Jack when we met him out front the other day that I certainly identified somewhat with him as being an old peanut farmer, understanding how the peanut industry works and being a part of that world over the years certainly gave me even more appreciation of what Jimmy Carter meant to Georgia, meant to Plains, his neighbors, whom he never forgot. His neighbors not only in Plains and in Georgia, but around the world. So thank God for a good man and a good woman and what they meant to so many different people. It's been quite a year in our state. You've all covered it from the time the session ended and all of the things that happened. Incredible accomplishments around our state that have made a difference in people's lives, but also some really tragic situations that have occurred and some significant challenges to we as individuals and to this state, and also create some great challenges for what we can do to help keep our neighbors safe. And I'll touch on that in a few minutes, a couple of those issues. I can tell you, the members of the House have been working diligently over the summer. They've been engaged. Chairman Werkheiser, I know you've been busy. You travel all over this state. I know that Chairman Parrish has been all over the state and the country working on GMEs, graduate medical education, any number of subject matters that are critical to what we'll do here in the next 40 days when the session begins. And I'm excited about it because we can make a difference. And I think we can get some things right, by what we do, considering all the facts. That's what the members have been doing, gathering facts, gathering innovational facts that may change what we do here, but certainly a part of working with our team in the House, certainly working with the Senate and working with a governor that has wisdom and looks into the future to make sure we do some things here that bring common sense and a practical approach, pragmatic approach to what we do here. Certainly, Georgia will continue to have a bright future. Let's talk about elections. I kind of start with that point. We have about 20 new members of the House coming in this year. They're a very accomplished group of folks on both sides of the aisle, and so they're well versed, and we look forward to incorporating them into the business that we do in the House. And they're going to be important members of the House. But you know, the election occurred all across America. And I believe a clear mandate came from that election, not only for Washington, but also for us here in Georgia, that we must move forward with the same types of policy we have in the past, because that good conservative legislation that cares about your neighbor has enabled us here in the House, the Republican side of the aisle, to maintain that 100-member majority. And that's important to what we do here. It's also changed some things in Washington, but they'll do their business there, and we'll do ours here. But this chamber will be effective and impactful. And we will consider voices from both sides of the aisle as we blend those voices together for the very best policies that we can provide for Georgians. Talk about a couple of things. Why were we able to maintain a majority? Working in conjunction with the governor to bring back to all of us in this room, the taxpayers of Georgia, a tax cut. We'll lower our income tax rate. And guess what? We're going to look at that again. We also did a lot of work. One of our passions in the House is public safety. We're investing in education. It's paying dividends. And another one of our priorities is access to quality, affordable health care. I believe that as we consider all of these areas, with good conservative leadership, good conservative ideas, that they're delivering results, that Georgians, and obviously Americans as well, some of those policies that have been proposed on a national level, but in Georgia, we're making a difference, and around that kitchen table, the people of this state understand that we're making their lives better, and we'll continue doing that. Let's look forward to 2026. I'm a forward-looking guy, y'all. I can just tell you that. We learn from the past, get lessons from the past, but we also look to the future, and we're going to continue to work that way. We're going to work with a direction, and we're going to work tirelessly. The members of this body are going to work. They're coming to work. They've already been at work, as I said, but they're working right now as this year begins to make sure we maintain that majority on conservative issues in the House, and not only here, but in all levels of government here in Georgia. We believe our issues resonate with all of Georgians, and we appreciate them supporting us in good conservative policy. Now, we have a pretty good guy downstairs who has some pretty good ideas as well, Governor Brian Kemp. What can I say? He's provided leadership for Georgians through the thick and the thin, if you will. And he certainly supported us. His folks have been a part of our efforts to make sure that we had a successful election cycle. He's helped us, as our supporters have, to build and maintain an infrastructure that allowed us to be successful during this election cycle and will allow us to be successful in the years to come if we simply continue to do our work here at the Capitol and make sure we consider all Georgians. Issues and policies that impact Georgians are also impacted by elections. We know that, and we want to make sure that we continue by developing those policies, addressing those issues, to continue to make Georgia be what? The best place to live, work, and raise a family. And y'all know what I like to add, have a little fun along the way, and there's nothing wrong with that. Let's talk about a couple specific ideas that we're going to continue to address starting in January. We're going to hit the ground running. We're going to work up front because we've been working on these issues over the interim, and we're going to be ready. Education. We all know in this room there's no more important issue that affect Georgians and our quality of life than education of our people. We want every child in this state to have an opportunity for a good quality education. We want to provide that opportunity to receive that education for every parent every teacher that's employed, and certainly those students. But we want to make sure you do one thing so you can focus on getting that education. We want you to feel and we want you to be safe when you go to school. A secure learning environment. You can't learn when you're under stress, I don't believe, not very well, but a secure learning environment is what we're concerned about. So, you'll see us very early on increase school safety measures. We have some good ideas there. We're learning from some of the issues that we have in the past. We know that technology will play a part of that. We know that funding, and I'm proud of the funding we provided to our local school systems to help implement school safety measures in those schools, and that will be on an ongoing basis, and I think you'll see some more of that funding continue to make sure that secure school system is in place, school surrounding environment is in place for our students, as it should be. So what do? When schools are safe, we're ensuring that parents feel comfortable when they bring their children to school and drop them off in the mornings. Educators feel safe. So how do we ensure that is continued through the day, that everyone feels good, so in the afternoon they come pick up the children? Several different matters, and one of them will be mental health, as we'll address mental health issues, continue to address mental health issues when it comes to our school systems. We want to be proactive when it comes to mental health issues, not reactive when a mental health issue comes up in our schools. So we'll make sure that that's part of the process that we put in place. So we're getting a good, secure school system. So what do they do there? Our team has been working tirelessly over the summer. Chairman Irwin, over from the Senate, Senator Hickman, we've worked on literacy with the Literacy Council. Good ideas. It's time. We're ready to move. We're ready to work with the Senate and the governor's office to implement additional literacy initiatives that will ensure that Georgia's move forward, that our children, along with the private sector. Hey, a guy named Malcolm Mitchell, I think he played a little football over there with you guys. So Malcolm's efforts are certainly from the public and the private sector coming together. We can make a difference, and we can make that difference immediately and not years to come. We want to be impactful on our decisions and our efforts with literacy. It will come from various and different directions, but we can make a difference in literacy, and we're prepared to do that, and you'll be hearing more about those initiatives as we go into the session. So let's talk about something y'all want to talk about, is boys and girls sports. Well, just to tell you this, I don't know about you guys, but you know, when you an important part of life is certainly education. Another important part of life is participation in athletics. It was for me in school, and it is for our students now. So we want to make sure the level playing field is level. If you're a young woman, and I have 4 granddaughters, and they're engaged in athletics, and they work hard, spending hours a week preparing themselves to participate. We want them to have the opportunity to excel and to win, to be first. But they need a level playing field so the girls will participate against girls and compete against girls, and boys will participate against boys, and that's how it should be. And I believe you will see that we will codify legislation that will protect that area. And I don't know if you guys have also been there, but some of us have been in a guy's locker room. It's not a place for girls. So we're going to make sure that the girls are in the girls' locker room and the boys are in the boys' locker room. That's as it should be. So that'll be one of the things we'll address during the early part of the session. It's not our only priority, but it is one of the issues that we will address when it comes to how we're addressing the issues in our school systems. Healthcare. We have spent a lot of time over the last few years to achieve that goal of quality, affordable health care for every Georgian. We've worked closely with the governor. There's been numerous initiatives that have gone out from maternal mortality, infant mortality issues, infant care issues, health care for that sector of our population to ensure that they have the care they need when they need it, and that is extended, and also from a mental health perspective when it comes to maternal health care. You'll hear us talk about this session as we extend that time of care even longer. I think you will hear some conversation about that, and we'll certainly bring that to the forefront to make sure we take care of those folks that are vulnerable and need our help. That will be another focus of the House. We'll bolster that care as we make sure we do that, but we'll also need to do something else. To accomplish our goals when it comes to health care, we'll need to strengthen and add to our medical workforce. As I said, our GME efforts is led by Butch Parrish. We need to make sure that we are looking and doing the latest innovative procedures, if you will, to make sure we train healthcare workers in Georgia. You know, we've worked hard and we funded down in Savannah with Georgia Southern and Medical College of Georgia a new medical school, a new dental school, a new standalone medical school at UGA. Those of you from the Athens area and UGA fans, y'all understand how important that is, how that system works. But that's not enough. As we graduate medical students in this state, they need a place to make sure they come here to do their residency. It's simple. We know that where a doctor does his residency, his or her residency, that's usually where they'll end up. And we know that Georgia, because people are coming here all the time, is a great place to live, work, and raise a family, right? So we know that we need to make sure that we do our part, and it will be an investment on the part of the state to ensure that those residency programs are not only in the major cities, but there are opportunities in smaller cities and even in rural communities. And by all those coming together, we'll do just what our objective is, increase health care to all Georgians, no matter what part of the state that you live in. We know that's important. We know there's some opportunities there. We've seen them in some surgical residencies and fellowships. We can see that also happening in the OB world as we make sure those services are provided all around Georgia. We'll also take another step that we talked about. We had a resolution last session. We'll go ahead and codify protections for IVF in vitro fertilization. We know how important that is to families. Families that have strived to have children that has been difficult, and there's an option, a viable option, there's a reasonable option that they would enable them to have a family. We know that's important to them, but it's important to our society. We know that there's some rulings in the legal system, in our court system, in some neighbor states that have clarified some issues. So we want to make sure that every family in Georgia, every couple that wants to take advantage of IVF can do just that. And that'll be one of our priorities we'll do as well. I mentioned maternal and infant health care. There will be an extra incentives and focus on that area. And I think you'll be pleased as Georgians to see some of the actions we'll take there. All right, I talked about public safety. Some of y'all were here yesterday. There were some discussions here yesterday. I think the governor had an announcement maybe yesterday or today about some support for our prison system. Chairman Hatchett has been meeting with the Commissioner of Corrections the last couple of months, making sure we have all the facts in place as we consider policy and investments in our prison system. That we need to make sure our guards, our prison workers, are adequately compensated, to make sure that they're there to do their jobs and we have the right numbers there to do their jobs, that they're safe, that the public is safe. So there's some infrastructure investments we'll make there. Technology makes a difference when you look at the how we deal with drones or how we deal with other contraband entering prisons. We need to make sure that we get that piece right. If that involves increased additional legislation, we'll look at that. But one of the main focuses we see is these investments in basically making our prisons safe. Look, if you commit a crime in Georgia and a jury and a judge sentence you to prison, then it's about public safety. You're protecting the public. But we also believe that you need to be protected when you go to prison if you're a prisoner. It needs to be a place that you aren't threatened. And so we believe very, very adamantly that that's a part of this whole conversation, that we also make prisons a safe place for the prisoners. I think it's just common sense. The last thing we've had a discussion about over the last couple of years is school zone cameras. Interesting subject. I know the legislative intent, obviously, is what it should be, is to protect school children and families as their parents drop them off at school and pick them up in the afternoon. There's two parts of it, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about the time school zone cameras run. Our intent was not 24/7 or doing the entirety of the day. It was doing a period in the morning while children, some children still walk to school in the state. Probably not a whole lot anymore, but some still live close enough to the neighborhood schools to walk to school. We want to make sure they're safe. Parents are dropping kids off at school. In other areas, young people are driving to school. We want that extra protection. Slow it down. We don't need distracted driving around a school zone. And that's what school zone cameras help us to do. That's what they were intended to do. And we're going to have a very lively discussion. And I think we'll correct the issue that what our legislative intent is that school zone cameras operate when young people are going to school in the mornings and then when they're leaving school in the afternoons. The second part of that, there's some revenue that's generated by school zone cameras. A lot of people can't figure out they need to slow down because someone else needs to be safe. They need to watch out for their neighbor. So what we'll do there, we're going to ask our local folks, and we can work with them. We want to make sure that any revenue that's created by school zone cameras are applied to school safety. We think that's a reasonable request and a reasonable use for it. If you're one of those folks that that for whatever reason got a ticket from a school zone camera, that be focused on taking care of those young people, because that's what it's all about. The last thing I'll touch on before we take a few questions is economic development. Aren't y'all proud that Georgia is the best place in the nation in which to do business? And I think that's for 11 consecutive years. Pretty special. I know that Georgia, we've been very blessed by having great workers here, great work ethic, but we're also blessed to have a great state from an environmental perspective, from a resource perspective, a great diversity, and we see that people want to come here, workers want to live here, so we have to provide jobs. And I think our economic development successes have not happened by accident. Good planning, good encouragement from strategic investments that have helped make it possible to entice folks and companies to come to Georgia. Georgia's a great place, and why? We have a good tax rate. We've had fiscally responsible spending and management of our budgets over the years, starting with Governor Perdue, Governor Deal, and certainly continue with Governor Kemp. That means that Georgians are conservative spenders. You know, our surplus was not created overnight, and I follow that Jack Hill practice of thinking, every year is not going to be a great year. So some folks would have us, because of our successes in the past, to spend this surplus all at one time. I think Governor Kemp has managed it very well. We've been glad to support his initiatives of spending some of our surplus on much needed projects in our state that are one-year spendings, and we can accomplish those goals. And we'll continue to make those strategic investments in Georgia, but we will have a pace about it that will allow us to do a couple of things. Certainly continue to reduce our income tax rate. Chairman Shaw Blackman is adamant about that, and we want to continue to work with him and certainly reduce that tax rate. Also applies to corporate citizens, and that's important as folks come here to do business here. And certainly, I don't know about y'all, but I'm always glad as the taxpayers of this state to get a little money back from the state. That's important. The other thing y'all hear a lot about, you've been hearing a lot about it for the last year, is some folks want to call it tort reform, and I think it should be called common sense lawsuit reform. The House is led there. We've enacted several pieces of legislation over the last few years that have found success on the other side of the building, sometimes not. But we've continued to make sure we started that pendulum swinging back to bring some common sense, a common sense perspective to how we deal with issues, and we also how we deal with issues where someone is legitimately injured. We also know that some of those issues have gotten way out of whack, if you will, and we want to make sure some of those awards, we want to make